Welcome to my American History Notes, where I read my conclusions that I've drawn from studying American history. Conclusions which you probably won't agree with, you might not even like or feel offended by. But the important thing is that you study and you have your own opinion. Now, I'm going to read Divert. Before we get to Grant administration, we're going to talk about something very important is Abraham Lincoln's religion. And what I think it does, it represents some very important things about the trends in religion, in Protestant religion in the 19th century, and that we need to understand what people, the way the big shots and the movers and shakers thought. So I want to discuss this for a couple of. It's going to be a couple of times we're going to do this because I think it's very telling. And Abraham Lincoln's view on religion, what we can ascertain or learn, uh, tells a lot about Americans' view of themselves at that time. And we need to understand that when we look at events like the Civil War or the westward expansion, we need to understand how they viewed themselves, not how we view them, but how they viewed themselves to understand what actually happened. So it's very important to try to understand what did people at the time you're studying believe? What was their mindset? What was the spirit of the age? So let's begin. Um, Lincoln's powerful drive to do whatever necessary to preserve what he called in his last message to Congress before releasing the Emancipation Proclamation, the last best hope of earth, unquote, was a strong motivation that helped him endure the trials he faced. It's possible to show that his motivation stemmed from faith in the God guided destiny of his country that was a common thread in American political and religious history. This is America as a nation of destiny, the promised land, God's special agent in the world, unlike any other nation. This faith in America's divinely inspired destiny that places Lincoln in the context of the belief in a messianic America that had voiced throughout American history is what sustained him throughout the conflict that dominated the final years of his life. This faith had a profound influence on his leadership methodology and on his interactions with his public, his politicians, and his professional military subordinates, which I'm going to show. Now, from America's earliest days, prominent voices evoked the concept of America's destiny to be a quote, a city upon a hill, stating that quote, the eyes of all people are upon us. Now, and that's John Winthrop from John Winthrop's A Model of Christian Charity. Preachers and prominent men, such as the president of Yale College at the country's victory in the American Revolution, referred to God's special grace on America as a divinely inspired and white nation. This early concept of America's divinely ordained place. Now that you can get that at Ezra Stiles, the United States elevated to glory and honor in the pulpit of the American Revolution, or the political sermons of the period of 1776, John Wingate Thornton, editor. So you can find that online. This early concept of America's divinely ordained place in the world is represented by the co-opting of the reference in Daniel 2:45 in the Old Testament to a fifth kingdom that is, quote, a stone cut out of the mountain without hands that smashes the feet of the statues of past kingdoms in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which is prominent in the early American mind. Um, Early American writers spoke of a millennium. I'm not going to read all my references until the end. I'll just do that. That way, it won't interrupt the narrative. Excuse me. Early American writers spoke of a millennium to come of peace and progress initiated by America's very existence. Millennial beliefs based on the Bible combined with a faith in America's inevitable progress and capacity for being a beacon of freedom in the world was common in American belief. John Eliot, Cotton Mather, and other notables such as Jonathan Edwards linked America during the colonial days with a golden age of progress for mankind and as the center of the millennium of Christ's reign, although without Christ being physically present, but reigning through the church. A radical departure from traditional Calvinism's hopelessness for a world full of sinful, depraved men. While there is much dispute and little agreement on Lincoln's place and in the evangelical Christian context of the first half of the 19th century, there is little argument regarding Lincoln's place in the religious tradition mentioned that I just mentioned. Um, that of a firm believer in America's special place in God's plan for the history of the world. Lincoln was called the quote spiritual center of American history. The question, and this was that I have to say that Sidney E. Mead, Abraham Lincoln's Last Best Hope of Earth, The American Dream of Destiny and Democracy in the journal Church History, March 1954. Um, so the question of how Lincoln's messianic view of America affected his role as commander in chief sustained him in the struggle of the American Civil War and even played into his relationships with his subordinates is my subject here in the next few times. I want to talk a little bit about the literature regarding this information. Excuse me, and then we'll stop and continue pick it up later. Um, Regarding whether or not Lincoln's faith in God passed the test of Christian orthodoxy, there are three distinct views. One is expressed by his former law partner, William Henry Herndon, in Abraham Lincoln, The True Story of a Great Life, and the text of addresses he gave on the subject of Lincoln's religious beliefs or lack thereof, entitled Lincoln's Religion, edited by Douglas McMurtry. Lincoln was considered a skeptic, a deist, and unorthodox in his belief in the former book, and in the latter, he is portrayed as an outright unbeliever with regard to historical Christian beliefs. Under the hand of John J. Nicolay, Lincoln's secretary, in the pamphlet, excuse me, Abraham Lincoln, he is referred to as a deeply religious person, but not orthodox, being rather, it appears, a Christian gentleman who followed the quote, golden rule. This middle ground is not uncommon in reference to important and powerful men, as does not require too close an examination of their beliefs as their behavior is deemed sufficient for a classification. Nicolay was an author of a 10-volume biography on Lincoln. On the other hand, former General and Congressman Henry Ketchum wrote The Life of Abraham Lincoln, where he promoted the idea of Lincoln as a devout Christian. General Daniel Sickles, among others, also supported Lincoln's orthodoxy, as supported in Medal of Honor winner Charles H.T. Collis's The Religion of Abraham Lincoln. Correspondence between General Charles H.T. Collis, Colonel Robert J. Ingersoll, with appendix containing interesting anecdotes by Major Daniel E. Sickles and Honorable Oliver S. Munsell. F.B. Carpenter, a portrait painter, also commended Lincoln's religiosity in his 6 months at the White House with Abraham Lincoln, The Story of a Picture. Regarding Lincoln as the standard bearer for American exceptionalism, some good works that are most useful for this study are William J. Wolfe's The Religion of Abraham Lincoln, which was first published as The Almost Chosen People, a study of the religion of Abraham Lincoln. Wolfe quotes significant remarks by English theologian Frederick Denison Maurice that evinced Lincoln's role as a standard bearer for the political religion of the, quote, theocracy of the Pilgrim Fathers. William Barton, in his The Soul of Abraham Lincoln, reveals Lincoln's personal religious inspiration in Lincoln's own words. Gettysburg College's Gabor Borit and Alan Guelzo offered noteworthy understandings of Lincoln's political religion. Borit wrote the Gettysburg Gospel, the Lincoln speech that nobody knows, and Guelzo gave the world Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, the end of slavery in America. In addition, the many speeches and proclamations made by the president throughout his life and career are available for review. Lincoln's letters and speeches can be accessed in multi-volume series, such as the one edited by Arthur Brooks Lapsley entitled The Writings of Abraham Lincoln, and in the Lincoln Financial Foundation collections, pre-inaugural speeches of Abraham Lincoln, 1861, and Abraham Lincoln and Religion, sourced from newspaper articles and other documentation. The Merwin Rowe edited Speeches and Letters of Abraham Lincoln, 1832 to 65, is a valuable resource, as is the Burroughs Company of Cleveland's text of the political debates between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas, and Edwin Earl Sparks' edited version of the text of those debates, although precious little is referenced in the debates regarding America's messianic role in the world, except by Douglas. Official documents also have a value in that official pronouncements often present more than just a politician's acquiescence to societal norms, but also reveal a bit about his commonly held beliefs with the people he served, such as the government printing office publication of his general order respecting the observance of the Sabbath day in the Army and Navy. Finally, multiple works are available discussing Lincoln's relationships with his commanders, such as Claret's, McCartney's, Lincoln and his generals, plus an abundance of secondary sources written by modern historians like James McPherson. Clearly, there are a lot of published works that shed light on the subject. A complete list would be too long for my purposes. What I'm talking about in this literature review kind of hit on the highlights that I use for this study, even if not quoted directly. So next we'll talk about Lincoln's evangelical background. Um, and then we'll go from there. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps you study. And I know you're not going to agree with me. It doesn't matter. long as you have an opinion because you've studied. That's my thing. I want people to know about American history. Thank you.